Hi, and welcome to the Genesis of Preacher. I'm Chris Saunders.
I'm Sean Baker.
And today we're going to talk about episode 8 of the second season of Preacher.
Pretty damn good episode.
Pretty good episode there. Titled Holes, which is we do get to see in there that not just one but two holes.
Actually,
covered.
multiple if you go into the apartment or the building where Dennis
That is
lives,
true.
where
That
many
is-
people were shot by the
that
set
is
of killers. Two of going around patching up holes. But we begin in hell. We check back in with Eugene, who's bulked up, and we get a very Scorsese, as Chris pointed out, Cape Fear kind of moment. Looking like he's, training to be a badass so he can survive in hell, and that kind of falls apart later on.
So yeah, it's still offline, but they have figured out the reason.
But problems can occur, problems like the ones we've been experiencing, when there are more yous than there should be. When one of the yous isn't supposed to be here.
So there is somebody that does not belong in hell, and that's putting it on the fritz, and so obviously that's Eugene. He's playing that close to his chest. Chris called it really early on, and by the end of the episode it was obvious this was going to happen, or at least it seems obvious at this point, that I believe you looked at me and said, how funny would it be if Eugene and Hitler break out together? And it's clearly going to happen.
You have to trust me, Eugene. I want to help you.
Help with what?
To escape, of course.
I'm waiting for that whole, arse-faced Hitler buddy road trip.
Yeah, and you could almost see it would have been one of those. It would have been in like the ancient history trade almost, where it was like the one shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Her space and Hitler on the road.
That would make for a very fun spin-off.
Yeah, but even though it's offline, we continue to get the wonderful, the simple tortures of hell, which the vending machine full of Zagnut bars,
I'd rather eat a skunk's balls.
the deflated basketball.
Duct tape toilet paper.
Oh, possibly the worst. Oh my god, can't even imagine. So that was cool, and it's a good dynamic. The caveman with his face taped to the file.
The caveman
that
with
made the episode for me.
I love how when the higher he turned up the volume, like the more intense.
Fantastic.
So that was great. And I love that they still the callback, where Hitler's still sitting there, still going over his already filled in crossword puzzles.
Filled in crossword puzzles. Oh my god.
I love just how absolutely bored Hitler seems with hell. He just,
Yep.
he just has this constant look about him of just.
We go from hell to Cassidy, 1946, hospital nursery. Little Dennis has just been born. He's singing him old Irish traditional
Charlotte the
Harlot, and a tender scene. Then they cut from that into the present, and Denis is dying, and he's still begging to be bitten. And I'm wondering, like I looked at you and said, man, if I was in that situation, I'd be pissed if my dad wouldn't turn me.
Oh,
or
absolutely,
anyone,
absolutely.
And my theory is that Cassidy, so they're humanizing him, as Chris said, and in the comic book he's such a likable person, and then events happen and they kind of pull the rug out from under that, and
the penny drops.
And it's such a terrible feeling because you love this person, you love this character. I'm wondering if they're building him up for that here. My theory is Cassidy's not going to bite Dennis because he doesn't want anybody else walking the earth as long as he does, because they will know what a bastard he is.
No, and that's a great theory, because it seems like the only people in the comics who have seen Cass's his true colors, so to speak, are either no longer with us, or with the exception of, I believe there was one woman who then told Jesse in the comics, about
Yes.
some of the stuff that he did back in the 70s and things like that. So it just seems like he really wants to distance himself away from him, from who he used to be, essentially. Which is interesting because in this episode we hear him call himself by his first name.
Which, in the comic, there's a whole bit where he gives Jesse, they're on, I believe it's the Empire State Building, and he gives him his backstory, or at least he wants him to hear it and leaving other things out. You find out later. But when the part comes to his name being Pontius, they cut out of the flashback and Jesse's laughing and he's like, don't tell Tulip, I never want to hear the name again. And that's pretty much I think at one point Jesse teases him with it at the end of that issue, but otherwise, like, he never calls himself by that name. Where here at the end of the episode, he calls this person Seamus and he identifies himself.
He says, hey, it's Pontius.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Pontius.
So if your theory that he doesn't want anybody, knowing about the things that he's done, but then he calls this man on the phone, who seems to be like an old friend, Seamus, and the way that they're interacting, you brought up a very good point about is Seamus, is he a vampire as well? Is he, somebody who has known Cassidy for years and years and years, or is he just somebody in the last, 10, 15 years he's kind of made buddies with, who, they're kind of drinking pals. But the way that he discusses Dennis with him makes it seem that he is privy to the knowledge that he is a vampire.
Well, it almost seems like he's asking either for guidance or permission in a way. And, like you brought up when we were talking about it while we were watching the episode, in the book, very young, I think it's 16-year-old Pontius is bitten in Ireland by something that pops out of like a creek, and then
that's it.
Other than the very Lestat-ish vampire that he meets in New Orleans, I forget what year that is. So the point being, it's the only other vampire that he knew.
Exactly. Outside of I wouldn't even want to call it a vampire, more of a creature that comes out and attacks him and turns him into a vampire. So that would really be changing the whole Cassidy formula. Which
they've changed enough formula and it's worked where I can see them doing it.
Which brings up another thing too. In the comics, Cassidy, when this happens, happens during what happened over in Ireland called the Easter Rising, which was Michael Collins, as you pointed out, and all that kind of stuff, which they put at roughly about 1916, something like that. Again, comics were written 20 years ago, so we're thinking that we see this flashback to 1946. Enough time's gone by between the comics and when we're seeing the show, so quite possibly they're pushing forward his when he becomes a vampire.
Yeah.
So I'm almost thinking that when we see him in the beginning of this singing the song, saying he's going to be the best dad that he could be, that we're still seeing human Cass.
Yeah, it's very possible.
It was a very brightly lit.
Yeah.
And then later on he becomes a vampire. Maybe that's why he was the absentee dad. And he's kind of pushing forward his overall story.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, Cassidy's origin is arguably, possibly my favorite thing in Preacher, and while I'll be sad to see certain things not show up, which may or may not happen, I'm still very curious based on what they've done so far with the changes they've made to see how they do it. So
Cassidy, everything that they've done with him, even when I first saw the promos, first Joseph Gilligan, I've been a fan of his since I first saw him in the English show The Misfits. So I was very happy when he would be in it, but as a Cassidy fan, I was very upset that every promo thing I saw of him, he's never wearing sunglasses.
Yeah.
It was one of those little things that just really bothered me. I'm like, this is, like Seth Rogen, what are you doing? Rogen!
Yeah.
What are you doing? But then the show actually started, and it's like, holy shit! I'm very happy with what they're doing with this. I don't even mind. And now we're, a season and a half in here, and I'm sitting here watching the show, thinking, what sunglasses? After Cassidy, we drop back down into hell for a little bit. We see Eugene's true colors come out, and he's just such a fucking nice guy.
Yeah.
He's too nice to the point where I'm getting aggravated watching.
Yeah, right.
Dude, you're as the demon lady said before. You're in hell. Act accordingly.
And he just can't quite do it, so he gets thrown in the extrapolator
or hole. I see what you did there.
And he relives. You see the moment you've seen before with Tracy, and she's got the shotgun, and then he talks her out of it, and then all of a sudden there's the turn where she's like, I like you too, I'm just mad you didn't tell me before. Yeah. And you're like, oh my, okay, is this just they're going to torture him with what could have been? And And but then no, but I've given myself to someone else, to God. And then Jesse walks out, and it goes all kinds of wrong.
I told you I was gonna come for you, Eugene, and I'm coming. Right now!
We go back to Dennis's place, and Tulip's there. Tulip has developed a taste for pain, right? So she's been going to the Hurt Locker a lot. And she's going around, she buys a new fridge, she's going around, we didn't even do the dork docs, but
that's fine.
She's going around patching up the holes in the apartment where the Saints bullets went through the walls. And
which is that's like her dealing with her own PTSD from the Saints.
Absolutely.
Which she's literally trying to, cover up her own hole.
It's a nice visual metaphor for what's going on psychologically and emotionally with her. Featherstone has set up shop and is monitoring them. And then they introduce formally, even though I don't think they say his name, but once you see him in the suit, it's Hoover. So I've been waiting for this guy. Yeah. I'm hoping if they do one other thing from the comic, it's what happens to Hoover. It's magnificent.
Yeah, because see, in the comics, for those of you who haven't read, Hoover and Featherstone are essentially Hairstar's right-hand men once he kind of comes to America.
Yeah.
How they make it seem. And just the shit that these two people have to put up with, which, as you saw, Hairstar in the last episode there, he's not an easy man to work with.
But so then they go back, so then we see Tulip knock on the door, and they hide everything real quick, and then Featherstone does another disguise. She's very good at disguises, evidently. And there's this whole kind of neighborly moment where Tulip patches up a wall and she asks her questions, and Featherstone plays this, I'm Jenny and my ex-boyfriend beats me or whatever. She's got a handgun.
Bond over the blueberry.
They bond over the blueberry cereal, and then Tulip asks her,
you ever put on a bulletproof vest and get shot in the chest?
She says, no, but it sounds like fun. She said, we should do it sometime. And then she leaves, and you see this moment where Featherstone, I think she's like, got a new way to monitor Custer. I can just be friends with his girlfriend. So I think we're going to see something like maybe a girls' night out at the Hurt Locker.
Yeah, and that's a great theory that I didn't even think about. I saw her kind of smirk, and I thought, that was more of this like
I
got away with it. But I really do like your theory behind that, because I would love to see, how are they going to, keep introducing more and more Featherstone? Unlike a comic book, you have these actors.
Yes.
And you got to keep using them.
Yeah, right.
You can't do like we do in the comics where you don't see them for, issues, which in the comic world can sometimes be years.
Yeah, right.
All of a sudden, here comes a character back. You can't really, you can do that in television, but
it's not as easy.
It's extremely difficult to do.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they would be doing whatever they can to try to keep these actors into the whole flow of things.
So there are a couple issues where you get like a girls' night with Tulip and a friend. And so they could do that same kind of thing, but with those two, and then but then you have the underlying subterfuge, so that would even add another layer. So I'm hoping it goes that route.
That would be fantastic, actually.
Yeah. So 9 is coming fast. I'm very excited for it. So we'll be back next week, and in the meantime, I'm Sean.
I'm Chris.
This is the Genesis of Preacher. So get your whiskey, get your Bible. And
settle up, fuckers.